Tēnā koe, which is Te Reo Maori. So Te is the, Reo is language, Maori is the people, and it's a greeting. So part 3, folks, part 4, sorry, and the final part of the mailbag. So the reason I was putting that grotesque face was in a kind of homage to the haka, which is a fantastic Maori tradition and something I've been slowly trying to learn. So Sally has asked me to share a little bit about what experience I've had of Maori culture since moving to New Zealand, which I haven't been here very long, so it's still very new. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on it or to be able to tell you very much, but I can kind of share my personal experiences. I really love it. I really love the Maori culture and learning about it and stuff like that. It's fascinating. What I found really interesting is that I've come from a British NeoPagan tradition. I kind of I don't really truly follow any religious path because I kind of, you know, I'm a kind of free thinker and I kind of do my own thing. But I have been very involved with the Druid tradition in the UK, and I've also kind of got involved with Wicca and other forms of paganism. And the resonance with the Maori tradition is fantastic. Really, it's so similar, particularly to the Druid and the Celtic tradition. Even the artwork actually seems very similar to Celtic stuff. So things like reverence for ancestors, very strong connection with place. So one of the traditional welcoming and greeting ceremonies that take place among the Maori peoples is a form of introduction where people will say who they are, but the way they define themselves is kind of quite different to how, you know, somebody from the Western world might define themselves by saying, oh, well, you know, this is what I do for a living and I've got a degree in this. They talk about their origins. They talk about their waka, which literally means canoe or boat. So so somebody of Maori tradition they'll state several things in their introduction. So they will state their iwi, and the iwi is the tribe. So one of the most important things I think to know about the Maori peoples is that they are peoples and not people. It's a group of separate tribes, and they share one language, but it has different dialects, has variations. So it's a group of people, a cluster of different peoples, if you like, and they all claim slightly different origins. So they'll talk about the waka as in the boat that they arrived in New Zealand on. So as far as you know, the Maori peoples came from various different Polynesian islands about 1,000 years ago, and history or legend would have it that there was nobody here at the time. They were kind of, you know, empty virgin lands. That's not entirely agreed upon. There are legends that say that there were people here before that. They're quite interesting. But somebody will say which waka they travelled on, and they talk about their ancestor. And what I really like is they will talk about their mountain and their river. Now that really speaks to my heart because I've always felt, you know, a strong connection with the land. And I've always had, I didn't grow up in a mountainous area, but there were some certain hills. I grew up in Wiltshire, near the Downs, not far from Maidstone Circle. And my mountain, if you like, is Cheryl Downs, the White Horse Hill. I used to be able to see it from my house. There's one particular place in the house you could actually see the White Horse and the hill. My dog's buried up there, and so that's my mountain. My river is the River Avon. I've written poetry about the River Avon. I've always lived near the River Avon. So there's a very strong sense with the Maori tradition about connection with everything, really, everything being connected, but, you know, rivers, mountains, being part of the land. And I think very similar. I think the thing about the Druid tradition being similar to the Maori culture is I think all these kind of pre-monotheistic tribal traditions tend to be quite similar, I think. They have differences, but they have similarities in that their connection with the land is much more important than being part of things. So things like the elements, wind, air, the forest, that kind of thing, are deified and stuff like that. So, yeah, lovely culture. So iwi is the tribe, and then I'm just going to share a few terms with you that I've come across. Hapu is like a sub-tribe, so people would talk about their iwi, they would talk about their sub-tribe. So, and people from different tribes might not necessarily always be particularly harmonious. They might have a bit of a bad back history because they were a very, very warlike culture. And that's where the haka, I was sticking my tongue out there. the haka is you've probably seen the All Blacks do the haka. It's a fantastic thing. It's absolutely terrifying. And it was, a pre-war performance, designed to make your enemy's bowels turn to water, and the bulging eyes and the sticking out. Some people say the sticking out tongue means that I'm going to eat you, I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to eat you. So a warlike culture, but a culture that very much has its place. So even today, although it's changed, and the people have been very much kind of Christianized for the most part, there's still some reverence for ancestors, lots of reverence for tradition, and all those things really, and a different sense to Northern Hemisphere Western attitudes. Things like individualism isn't so important. There's much more emphasis on family. People use the word whānau rather than family, and whānau kind of applies to kind of extended family. And somebody's sense of well-being, if they're part of the Maori culture, will be much more influenced by how the well-being of their family and their loved ones and their neighbours and their friends. So not quite such an individualistic culture as the Western one. A few words to throw at you. Pakia. I'm Pakia. So Pakia means Pakia is a non-Maori New Zealander basically. So I'm actually a Pom actually, but I guess I'm kind of Pakia as well by default. Karekare is effectively prayer. So often meetings and gatherings are preceded with a short prayer, usually in the Maori language. So for example, where I work, when we have a team meeting, we begin with a karekare, the prayer. A waiata, which is a song, and we begin with a song as well. So we have a song and a prayer at the beginning of the team meeting, which I love. I just think it's fantastic that you begin, part of your work is to sing. I experienced that when I worked in Africa as well. Really loved it. So karekare, what are the words? So we've got, a few words there for you. So iwi, tribe, hapu, sub-tribe. Karekare is a prayer, waiata is a song, music's very important. Poi come from the Maori tradition. I don't know if you've seen poi, which look kind of like, it's probably kind of not a very flattering term to say pom-poms, but there's a dance that uses the poi. Haka, various kind of martial kind of arts with particular weapons and things like that. The sad part is that, like nearly all indigenous cultures, nearly all these wonderful, noble, fantastic, honourable indigenous cultures have been badly damaged by Western influence, by colonialism. New Zealand was kind of slightly different to a lot of other places that were taken over by the British in that they kind of tried to do the right thing. They established British rule in New Zealand by agreement with a treaty, and the treaty said that the land and the resources, continued to belong to the Maori people. It was all wonderful and well and good. But a little bit further down the line, when more people wanted to arrive in New Zealand, that deal was reneged upon in all kinds of nasty kind of underhand ways, and land was snatched from the Maori people, and things were contrived. So, for example, they would say, well, the land has been taken by the Crown from the Maori people because they rebelled but the reason that they rebelled was because the women were being raped, and the land was being ravished, and they were being attacked, and so all kinds of terrible injustices took place. And the New Zealand government has been in a long process of trying to put that right. And I know that's a controversial thing. Some people, some people probably in New Zealand, the Paki people might say that they've gone too far, and and a lot of people from the Maori traditions would say they've not gone far enough. I don't know enough about it to be able to give an opinion on that. What I love is the spirit behind that, trying to make good. I think that's fantastic. So what happened is the Maori population is very, very small. I think a lot of that was to do with disease, and a lot of that was to do with the wars that took place, and the atrocities that happened. But a lot of common European diseases. This happens all over, doesn't it? It's what happened with the Incas and the Aztecs. When the Spanish and Portuguese went over there, a lot of them died off with things like flu and that kind of thing. So the Maori population is quite small, and sadly is beleagued by a whole range of problems: poverty, lots of crime, all kinds of things, and that's what happens when one culture rapes another, and it takes generations and generations and generations for that to heal. So for example, the prison population in New Zealand is the Maori population are overrepresented in the prison population, but my sense is, maybe I'm being naive here, but my sense is that there is a very sincere desire to make good amongst the people of sort of Western heritage, and very much a desire to embrace that culture and to honour that culture. I guess there'd be all kinds of different views on this. Some people would say, who are you kidding, maybe. But that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm enjoying it. I'm learning more and more. I'm trying to learn the language. So maybe if you're interested, I can kind of do another video in a few months' time and give a bit more of an update, or talk more about history or culture or things like that. So the clock is ticking, and if this video gets too long, I won't be able to upload it. So I'm going to stop now. So that is the end of my mailbag, September 2018 mailbag. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Joe, for your questions. And the word I've been using to sign out on these videos is Rangimarie, which is a rather lovely word, isn't it? A poetic word, and that's a Maori word for peace. So Rangimarie.